4 straight days of severe weather. I know I've said that in my last 3 or 4 straight videos, but it continues. Severe weather chances today, tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday. Today it's going to be focused up through portions of the plains and Midwest. Tomorrow it's going to move over towards the Mid-Atlantic and New England. Then it's going to transition back into the plains, into the Midwest, and then back over to the Mid-Atlantic. So a lot to talk about. Let's of course start with today's risk. We have a large marginal, slight, and enhanced risk. That enhanced or 3 out of 5 risk for severe thunderstorms today stretches through portions of Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, Missouri, and Iowa. Let's take a look at the tornado risk zones today. 2, 5, and 10% risk for tornadoes. We also have this SIG 1, meaning EF2 plus tornadoes are possible inside this region today, according to the SPC or Storm Prediction Center. Especially though, if you're in northeastern Missouri, eastern Iowa, central to southeastern Iowa, northwestern Illinois, and then southern Wisconsin, we have this 10% SIG. So this area is going to have the highest chance for significant tornadoes today. Some larger cities in here: Quincy, Davenport, Dubuque, Rockford, Milwaukee, Chicago, Madison, Des Moines, right on the border there. So a pretty decent population in here. Make sure you have those alerts on. There's some bigger cities out here in the 5% SIG: Grand Rapids, Lansing, South Bend. You guys know who you are. Again, just make sure you're aware of what's going on today. As I was about to post this video, I saw we got upgraded to a moderate risk today. So you can see portions of central to northern Illinois, southeastern Iowa, southern Wisconsin, even a small slither of northeastern Missouri. We have a 4 out of 5 risk today, and that is triggered by this 60% SIG 1 wind threat. So again, this area: Peoria, Davenport, Cedar Rapids, Rockford, Chicago, Dubuque, and everywhere in between, there is a pretty high chance that there is going to be a damaging wind event through this region today. Now, not everyone in this area is going to experience it, but again, what this 60% zone means is there's a 60% chance that there could be a damaging wind event within 25 miles of any location in this zone. So please make sure you have a way to receive weather alerts today, and make sure you stay up to date as everything develops. We've also got that 30% wind risk up here, stretching from portions of northeastern Virginia through Maryland. You can see Baltimore and DC are included in that, up through Philly, and then almost all the way up to New York City as well. Getting into our hail threat today: pretty big SIG 1 area for hail: southern Wisconsin, central to southeastern Iowa, northern Illinois, northern Missouri, and then northeastern and east central Kansas. So 2-3 plus inch hail is possible in this region, according to the SPC. You can also see that actually live updated, I believe. You can also see we have just a small 5% risk for hail out there along the mid-Atlantic and through portions of West Virginia and into southern New England as well. Let's break down our severe threat today. We do already currently have some storms pushing through Iowa. The latest HRRR thinks these storms are going to continue to push off into the east, and we could have a nice line of storms pushing into northwestern Illinois and southern Wisconsin as we get into around 11 a.m. Does the Rufus see the same thing? The Rufus sees the same thing as well. We'll take a look at the MPAS. The MPAS sees something similar, but it has a little bit weaker of a line. Let's continue to move forward. These storms begin to approach Chicago as we get to around 1 p.m., fall apart on the HRRR. They don't really fall apart on the Rufus. They're keeping their strength, these supercells, but they're just north of Chicago. And then you can see on the MPAS and HRRR agree that we may see kind of a weaker structure up here, but again, there is the possibility. You can see the Rufus does have this a little bit stronger. The Rufus does tend to overconvect and be a little bit too aggressive though. So as we get into around 3, 4 p.m., it looks like we actually have another line forming out here. And it'll be interesting to see if this actually happens, because late in the morning, early in the afternoon, this first line, we're going to have a lot of rain, cooled air. We're going to have a lot of clouds, so that instability isn't going to have the chance to grow. So will this second round of storms really fire off? Will we see some strong supercells out here with potentially a lack of instability? We'll see. The HRRR thinks so. The Rufus thinks so. So does the MPAS. We push forward. You can see around 4 p.m. So if you take a look earlier in the day, one round around 11, and then about 4 or 5 hours later, 3, 4 o'clock, we have another round. And all of these models see the second round as well. So as we get into the late afternoon, again, portions of north and western Illinois, southern Wisconsin, eastern Iowa, northeastern Missouri, you could see that second round pushing through, and then we push into the early evening, and now we have that QLCS stretching all the way down into potentially central Oklahoma. Oklahoma, pay attention. Missouri, Illinois, up there through Wisconsin. I do want to take a look at what's happening out here throughout the day, and then of course this line is going to try to push off down into the southeast. The Rufus keeps this line a little bit more impressive, so we will want to be paying attention down in Indianapolis, St. Louis, Springfield. If this QLCS does intensify, we could see some damaging straight line winds, and there's always the possibility for some vorticity down this line for some tornadoes as well. Taking a look out east, the Rufus does have these storms firing off and beginning to intensify in the early afternoon out here through portions of western upstate New York, western Pennsylvania. And then as we get into the late afternoon, early evening hours, these storms are approaching the mid-Atlantic and pushing through Virginia down here. Taking a look at the HRRR, not as intense, still gives us a chance for some strong thunderstorms out here, but really not seeing as much. The impasse as well. So the Rufus is really, again, the one being the most aggressive. Taking a quick look at our parameters today, you can see we do have some short waves developing over eastern Iowa, northern Illinois, and a nice southerly flow into that west-southwesterly flow at around 11 a.m. You can see we have this surface low, a pretty diffuse warm boundary. This isn't going to cause too much forcing, but we do also have some really, really moist air down at the surface. You can see this bottom right screen with our dew points. So there's definitely a lot of severe parameters in place here. As we push later into the afternoon, it does look like our 500 jet is lagging a little bit behind our LLJ down here. So I could see some of these parameters not being completely timed perfectly to actually sustain a very, strong QLCS like the Rufus thinks, pushing down to the southeast. We'll have to see. There's a chance it's a nice boundary. There's a chance we get a nice front together with a lot of severe storms along it. But if the HRRR is right and this kind of low-level jet, this trough ejection, outruns some of these other features, it may end up being more of a quiet evening. But again, the Rufus doesn't see it that way, so we have to kind of account for all possibilities. We can see on the simulated infrared, and I actually wanted to pull this up because you can see all the cloud coverage here early in the morning. There's going to be a lot of rain under this as well. And then you get that second line developing. This is a lot of rain-cooled air after that moves through. I don't know that we're going to have an immense amount of instability out here, but it's possible. The models see it differently. The MPAS and the HRRR don't see this second line as strong, and I think it is because it's just lacking the instability as the second line begins to fire off as we get into 3, 4 p.m. I would say really 2 to 4 p.m. So we'll have to see. It's still pretty impressive, though. You can see we have this large upper level low spinning up here that's going to try to kick this tail out, and that's why you can get some vorticity and potentially tornadoes along this line if the parameters are timed correctly. Taking a look at tomorrow's severe threat. Large, marginal, and slight risk for severe thunderstorms stretching from portions of the southeast all the way up through New England. Not a tornado threat, or at least under a 2% chance for tornadoes in this region. 30% wind threat. So you can see the 5, 15, and 30%. The 30% does encompass portions of eastern West Virginia and northern Virginia, most of Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, central to eastern PA, and then portions of upstate New York, Connecticut, and far western Massachusetts. Hail risk, small 5% tomorrow. What's it going to look like? As we get into around the late afternoon, you can see we're trying to get a line of storms out here, trying to form some sort of QLCS off of our main upper level low up there in Canada. We push forward, and it looks like strong thunderstorms could begin moving into the mid-Atlantic early in the evening. That's at least how the HRRR sees it. The Rufus is the Rufus going to be more aggressive like it usually is? It is being a little bit more aggressive. Some potential supercells moving through the Hudson Valley into Connecticut as we get into around 7 p.m. And then you can see down here across portions of Tennessee, Alabama, up through Georgia, the Carolinas, Virginia, we have a line of storms forming late afternoon, early evening as well. Really, overall, tomorrow is not looking very impressive, though. Getting into our day 3, we have a large marginal and categorical risk stretching from the southern plains up through the Midwest. Probabilistic, you can see it. We have that SIG threat, so significant severe weather is possible in this region. West central Illinois, southern Iowa, central to northern Missouri, southeastern Nebraska, and central to eastern Kansas here. Now, taking a look at the latest Rufus, we could get, at least the Rufus thinks we could have storms firing off on Saturday at around 1 or 2 p.m. just to the south of Des Moines. Probably not going to happen just like this. This is a little bit far out, but we'll say up in this region is where we could have some storms beginning to fire off on Saturday. These storms start to form a sort of MCS and then begin to push south through potentially eastern Kansas, south into central Missouri, and then we'll have to see if western Illinois gets involved, and then you start to get a cluster of cells, so a little bit of a discrete mode, and we could get some strong storms through this region, and then eventually these begin to consolidate and then push south here, so maybe a wind hail risk as we push into the late night, maybe even seeing some sort of nocturnal threat through portions of Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Tennessee. The impasse actually has a pretty impressive MCS here. This would be a very, very damaging setup as we get into 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock. I would say this really begins to develop early evening and then push south eastern Kansas, central Missouri. So again, we could get an upgrade at least to an enhanced this upcoming Saturday. And then we do have severe weather on Sunday as well. Now, this is pretty far out. I'm not going to get into the details on this yet. I might actually get into the details on this tomorrow, but you can see we do have a slight risk for severe weather out here across portions of the mid-Atlantic and southern New England on Sunday. Excessive rainfall, portions of Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, southeastern Minnesota, Iowa, northern Missouri, and central to northern Illinois. You do have that slight risk for an excessive rainfall today. And then Saturday, that excessive rainfall threat shifts down through portions of southern Illinois, Missouri, eastern Kansas, portions of Oklahoma. You can see there, northern Arkansas, western Tennessee, and western Kentucky. So we could see a lot of rainfall on Saturday throughout this region. And then that shifts all the way down here into the southern Mississippi Valley, Dixie Alley region. Very cool temperatures are on the way, and I've been talking about this in my videos. A little bit of a cool down as we get into tomorrow, but watch as we get into Saturday afternoon and evening. Here it comes. We're talking about 10 to 20 degrees below average for this time of year. And then Sunday, that really begins to push down towards the Gulf. And look at this. We are experiencing much cooler temperatures than average across much of the country. So a nice cool down, and then that's going to stick around for a little bit. Look at this. We're getting into Monday. We're getting into Tuesday. We're getting into Wednesday. A lot of the country is still experiencing these below average conditions. And then really starts to shrink a little bit. We start to get some warm temperatures back. Rockies, down along the Gulf region, southeast, push out a little bit further. That cold air collapses again. So overall, I'd really say as we get into Sunday, big cool down for much of the country, at least as we push all the way out into the last week of June. The NHC has updated our Atlantic Disturbance 1. It now has a 10% chance for tropical development over the next 2 days. I have to say the satellite imagery is impressive, and I'm surprised that we don't have more than a 10% chance for development, at least for something weak. You can see very nice spin in the atmosphere, a lot of tropical moisture. The one issue is it's moving over the Yucatan Peninsula. If I could just crop and move the Yucatan Peninsula over here, and this was moving over the warm waters of the Gulf or of the Northwestern Caribbean, I'd say they'd probably have a 70+% chance of tropical development with this storm, but it's going to lose a lot of steam as it moves over the Yucatan Peninsula, and then eventually as it makes it up into the southwestern Gulf over the next 24 to 48 hours. We have kind of this tail end of this low pressure here that's going to be causing a lot of shear likely across the northwestern corridor of the storm or of the tropical low. So that'll probably tear it apart if it's not strong enough, which again, it's not really going to have the opportunity to strengthen as it moves over the Yucatan Peninsula right now. As always, I really appreciate you watching this video. If you like this type of content, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're notified anytime I upload a video or go live. I will be trying to go live to do some severe weather coverage later on this afternoon or evening. I got a lot of work to get done today, so if I can't get to it, I'll let you guys know in my Discord. If you want to join my Discord, the link is right down below in the description. It's completely free. Everything I talk about every single day in my videos and lives is in that Discord. I update it with all the latest weather info. So join it and say hi, and you'll get the updates again of when I'm posting videos and when I'm going live. Again, I appreciate you watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one, or I'll see you in the next live stream. See ya.